I have not behaved one single day of my life. Not one day of my life have I behaved, and I am fine.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're gonna hurt some people.
Whose car are we gonna take?
Thank you for joining us on the Nikki Medoro Show. I apologize for being a few minutes late. I've been following very closely our top story that we'll be talking about, of course, and that is the SAG-AFTRA national vote to strike for the actors to join the Writers Guild in hitting the picket lines. And this is huge news. I'm not kidding. I hope you like reruns and quote unquote reality TV, because everything entertainment wise, TV, movie will be impacted. I was just listening to the national news, and they were saying, I think it's just the directors that are going to be left on sets if this actors strike actually happens. Now, they are going to be having a press conference. I have it on another screen, so it has not started yet. I would assume, since 98% of voting members voted to strike, that this strike is going to happen. So we'll get into that. We'll also get into some reaction from many people, including Disney CEO Bob Iger, a man who makes $27 million a year, talking about how this strike will not only impact us, the viewer, what kind of content is put out, but all of the support services. You know, the people that, bring the food, the catering, the other businesses, the other workers who don't make it to the small or the big screen are going to be impacted by that. And so who should that really pressure, right? The SAG-AFTRA union members or those up top? Speaking of reality TV, we'll get into one show that I started watching on my flight home from Hawaii. I think we're going to see a lot more of these reality TV shows depending on how long this writer's strike lasts. Also today, I don't mean to laugh, the investigation into how cocaine possibly landed inside the White House has concluded. Many people are very upset with the quote-unquote result. I don't understand the hoopla about it. You guys can let me know in the comments if you give a crap about cocaine being found in the White House. I don't know. My level of caring about this story is so minimal, and yet it's like people are so impassioned by this, and I don't get it. So you guys explain to me why I should give a crap that cocaine was found in the White House. The president wasn't even there. Where it was found just leaves it open to so many interpretations of who it could have been. But you guys, am I missing something here? I think I am. Other big news, especially for people of childbearing years, the FDA has approved the first over-the-counter birth control pill. There's a little caveat to it. It's going to go on sale at major retailers next year. There will be no age restrictions on sales. And so I kind of want to talk to you guys about how easy it was for you to obtain birth control, and should we make it as easy as possible? In the second half of the show, we'll talk about Mommunes. To play on the word communes, where single moms kind of join together, live together. And I want to go from that of whether or not you would be up for something, women out there, or even dads. I mean, you have dad munes. It's not as cute to say. Of single dads maybe working together and raising families together. Would you live in a commune? Also, on my way home from Hawaii, I watched a lot of the things that were just offered on the streaming service and stuff like that. So I watched some weird things. But there was this huge ad, and it was in Texas and like the Montana area, not here in California, but where they're selling, huge lots of land and prefab houses to build your own multifamily commune. And do we need to get back to that? Is how we turned away from multi-generational housing that was found, early on, to single family housing in the suburbs where people moved away from their parents and grandparents. Was that the cause of a lot of the problems that we're seeing right now? And do we need to go back to that to solve problems? Or does that just create a whole nother problem? And then to round out the show, I do want to talk about the fact that we have a new guest in our house for the rest of this week. You were able to meet her yesterday. And I'm just saying, I think that personality tests for families and pets is so needed, because while I love our house guest, we totally chose the right dog when we chose Nugget. So we'll get into that to round out the show. And I want to know if you guys ever realized that you chose the right or the wrong pet and how it played into that. Okay, so that's all coming up on the Nikki Medoro Show. But to start us off, please, you guys, click the thumbs up button to show your support of the show. Please make it a habit. The super chat is also live. So if you are liking what you're hearing, if you like turning on YouTube every day and seeing new episodes of the show, you could donate whether you watch live or on replay. Just look for the $ by the live chat and you can throw us some dollars, a super sticker, a super thanks, a super comment that we'll also read during the show. And I go back and I read the comments that are donated during the replay. And then the number one way, say it with me, is to become Medorable. And that is the cool club that joins our Patreon and becomes a monthly Patreon subscriber. So all you have to do is go to theNikkiMedoroShow.com, theNikkiMedoroShow.com. The Patreon link is there. I do not set any sort of parameters of how much you can pay to become a Medorable. I just appreciate each and every person that donates monthly. And it's 1 month. One time a month you're charged. So whatever you can afford for the monthly tip for the show, we really, really do appreciate it. And again, theNikkiMedoroShow.com. Click our Patreon, become a Medorable. Also, check out the links to our past shows. Share them with your family and friends. There's a PayPal donation there as well. The email is theNikkiMedoroShow@gmail.com. That is also the email to reach me. Best way to reach me. Sometimes I don't see, like Twitter will hide some messages from people. Patreon, if you send me through Patreon or through the store, sometimes it takes a while for me to get them. So the direct email to the show is theNikkiMedoroShow@gmail.com. And then, of course, you can buy some merch. Go visit the merch shop. There's a bunch of stuff offered, not just the things you see behind me. So go to theNikkiMedoroShop.com and buy some merch and take a picture and send it to me. And then I'll post it on the show. Okay, so let's get into it. Yeah, the press conference still hasn't started. I just keep refreshing. Yeah, it hasn't started yet. How impacted would you be? How impacted would you be if there was no new television? Because I was having this debate in my head. I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, full disclosure. I am a paying member. And the reason why I'm still a paying member, of course, is not because I'm an actor, but because the broadcast unit was wrapped into SAG, the Screen Actors Guild. We were AFTRA together, and that's why it's called SAG-AFTRA. So I am not impacted as far as my job. I could still broadcast and things like that because these are the actors that are doing it. They are working on their contract. But it is my union. I pay union dues. And so I'm following it really closely. I'm going to play you a little bit of a news report as we wait, hopefully, for an update from the press conference on just kind of setting the stage for how we got to this point. This is from our friends over at ABC7.
Hollywood is on edge as the union representing all the big and small names of television and film is poised to strike. Overnight, the contract deadline expired without agreement, after more than 4 weeks of intense negotiations between SAG-AFTRA and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. 98% of the SAG members have voted to authorize a strike.
In this streaming era, everything is different. Nothing is the same from where it was in the broadcast TV era, where there was a model for residuals and a model for pay. Now all of that's changing, and the actors in the union are essentially saying, pay us more and give us our residuals. And a big component of these negotiations and what SAG-AFTRA is fighting for is also protections from AI.
SAG-AFTRA says in a statement, negotiators voted unanimously to recommend to the National Board a strike. Their president saying the union negotiated in good faith and was eager to reach a deal. But the AMTP's responses to the union's most important proposals have been insulting and disrespectful of our massive contributions to this industry. If the board formally votes to strike, film and TV sets would be near totally shut down. Even promotional tours or big events like Comic-Con would likely be put on hold. And many of the people demonstrating point out Actors are not all A-list celebrities, and this potential strike begins as the Writers Guild strike has already stretched to more than 70 days, fighting for similar victories with no end in sight. Going to be a long, hot summer. The CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, predicting this will have a very damaging effect on the entire business.
Okay, and I want to play you a little bit of Bob Iger because I think a lot of people are saying, the rich execs, that are in charge of all these paychecks on the other side are greedy. They're being greedy. They're not seeing what actors, and then of course it trickles down to the support staff, are facing. If you just go on Twitter, for instance, and do like hashtag SAG-AFTRA strong or whatever, you'll see people, they're showing residual checks. Oh, for what you did, you got 3 cents, right? We're not talking about a ton of money here. So again, I want to play you Bob Iger. Now, look, he makes $27 million a year. He's the head of Disney. He has obviously his own perspective on this. It seems a little tone deaf of what he's saying, but here he is talking about the strike.
Speaking of content, we're in the midst of a writer's strike, and very likely it would seem to have a actor's strike. How is that going to impact things, and what are your expectations there?
Well, I think it's very disturbing to me. We've talked about disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges that we're facing and the recovery from COVID, which is ongoing. It's not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add to that disruption. I understand any labor organization's desire to work on the behalf of its members to get the most compensation, to be compensated fairly based on the value that they deliver. We managed as an industry to negotiate a very good deal with the Directors Guild that reflects the value that the directors contribute to this great business. We wanted to do the same thing with the writers, and we'd like to do the same thing with the actors. There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. And they are adding to a set of challenges that this business is already facing that is, quite frankly, very disruptive.
So they're not being realistic?
No, they're not.
Why not?
I can't answer that question. I respect their right and their desire to get as much as they possibly can in compensation for their people. I completely respect that. I've been around long enough to understand that dynamic and to appreciate it. But you also have to be realistic about the business environment and what this business can deliver. It is and has been a great business for all of these people, and it will continue to be, even through disruptive times. But, being realistic is imperative.
What do you do in the interim, then? Does AI start to write a lot of scripts?
That's what they're concerned about.
It will have a very, very damaging effect on the whole business. And unfortunately, there's huge collateral damage in the industry to people who are, who are support services. I could go on and on.
Because he's concerned about that. All right, let me share my screen a little bit. And that this is the press conference from SAG-AFTRA. Let's see what they have to say.
Although we're all disappointed with the AMPTP's reluctance
I want it to be louder.
The solidarity among SAG-AFTRA members has never been stronger. Based on the enthusiasm I'm seeing from everyone, I truly believe this union has the unity and the resolve needed to fight for the future of their career.
So yeah, it just looks like they're confirming. It seems a little low, and I know that sometimes when I'm broadcasting, it's too low. So it does look like SAG-AFTRA will be joining the Writers Guild in the strike. And I don't know. I kind of feel like, yes. Look at this. This is right outside after the writer's strike, or pardon me, the actor strike. This is the chant. Pay your actors. 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 So, I mean, does it seem like these people, how much of your sympathy is there? And how long is your sympathy going to last? I remember, at COVID, people were being entertained. They had to stay home. They had to watch all of these videos and TV shows and movies, and they were catching up on everything. And you want that, but you have to pay for that. And I feel like at some point, people are like, going to think to themselves, all right, pay the actors. I want new content. I want my show to come back on. And so I love the fact that the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, is joining the Writers Guild and doing this. Now, Maria Shriver She put out a tweet. She said, wow, having writers and actors both out of work will affect so many families behind the scenes, many who live paycheck to paycheck, which kind of seemed what Bob Iger was trying to kind of push, which is true. It's very, very true. You know, the top paid actors aren't going to feel it as much as, supporting staff, right? Or even like B-list, C-list, D-list actors and actresses who work paycheck to paycheck. And many people were saying that. They're saying many writers and actors live paycheck to paycheck. That's the entire point. Union member writers and actors live paycheck to paycheck. Who should be considered more in negotiations like that? Let me know in the comments. Let's get to some of the comments right now. John, responding to how much is this going to impact you? John writes in, right now I'm watching my Blu-ray box set of the entire Rockford Files TV series. So it won't hurt me much for a while. I'm on season 2. Anonymous is Netflix, Apple, Universal, many companies not willing to pay. Of course they don't want to pay. Of course they don't want to pay. I feel like they are always looking at their bottom line. We know this from radio. We know this from television. You are a budget line. You always will be, right? I mean, look, let's just even look back, even though it's not a movie, it's a game show, but look at Pat Sajak and Vanna White, right? The pay discrepancy there. Then look at how much Ryan Seacrest is being paid. You don't think in that $28 million salary that they're giving Ryan Seacrest, they're not looking down the line to see where they can make up that money? Damn right they are. Damn right they are. Square says, with little time to keep up with new shows, I find so much to watch on Roku. It's almost like not investing and not watching the market. I will tell you, ever since I got a smart television, I'm amazed at how much free stuff there is on television. Remember, I was saying yesterday during the Emmy nominations, that show Jury Duty on free TV was nominated for an Emmy. You could watch that show for free if you have a smart TV or Freevee app or whatever. It's nominated for an Emmy. You don't think Netflix and all these places or Universal are looking at that and being like, there's so much free content. How am I going to keep up by paying these high salaries for all of these people? Look at what these people want to watch. If you don't know Jury Duty, they have one big name actor that's in the Jury Duty. It's so funny. And then one guy that's not an actor. Everyone else is an actor. I thought it was really clever. But again, that compared with this big budget TV or movie, where do you think they're going to fall? Let's welcome our friend Kim McAllister to the show. And Kim, I was just keeping an eye on this SAG-AFTRA. Mm-hmm. It looks like they are going to be striking along with the Writers Guild. I fully support it. I think, but I worry that because of the comments like Square is saying, there's so much free stuff to watch.
Yeah.
This could be dragged out for a while. Some of your, big, I know Succession is over, but those types of shows that you want to see the next season of, could be a while.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like they have to protect themselves. When you talk about AI and using people's voice and likeness and streaming fees and royalties, there's so many things that at risk here or at question. They have to take a stand.
Absolutely. And I love that the actors are also joining the writers because again, what is an actor without a writer? What is coming out of their mouths? That funny joke, that quip, that thing that you love about the show, the fast writing style, that's someone you don't see on screen. And the actors know that so intimately.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And now that you've been doing this for a month and when you moved, you gave up cable, right?
Yes.
And so now you don't have cable. You just have various subscriptions to streaming services.
Right.
Have you re-signed up for cable or are you happy with what you have now?
Well, again, I'm happy because there's, like I'm saying, there's so much free stuff to watch. I mean, my TV came with all this stuff on it already. Yeah. I mean, so many movies, so many TV shows. I still have my shows that I like to watch, right? And I do have Hulu plus live TV. So I get it that way. And then I just gave up Peacock, which I forgot that I discontinued, and I was trying to watch my show, and it kept telling me I wasn't a subscriber.
No,
and I was like, oh, that's right. I canceled that. Because there is so much. See, these friggin' dogs. Oh. Hold on one second.
It's all right. Oh, she mutes us so we don't hear her.
There you go. I was like, no, thank you. No, thank you.
No,
but
thank
yeah.
you.
So do how long do you think this is going to go? Do you want to know the history of the last time that actors and writers went on strike together? Was 1960. It was led by SAG-AFTRA president Ronald Reagan. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Did not last. It lasted like 6 days or 7 days. All right. So it did not last very long. But think about
Right.
that. 1960 is the last time. And you know what they got from that? Residuals. That's what came out of that
Yeah.
was residuals. Now I'm assuming they want to bump up in that residual pay, but they got it for the first time. Can you imagine doing something?
Well,
Someone using it and not paying you any money for it.
what I understand is these streaming platforms, there's some, I don't know if it's not, put into writing or whatever, but they don't have to report how many times something has streamed, which then means that you don't get the residuals from how many
Right.
times somebody has
It's
clicked,
shown.
yes, let's watch
Yes.
this, right?
Exactly.
That's a big deal. So I think residuals, we need to spell it out exactly what that means for people that are working in this industry.
Absolutely. Now, Ron says, Nikki, I think your show model is the future. If they won't pay you what you're worth, technology allows you to broadcast your own product and go around them. Okay. But I kind of feel like we've gotten a mouthful of this with all
Yeah.
the streaming apps, right? So you didn't want cable. You didn't want DirecTV. You didn't want Comcast. You wanted only the shows and the television channels that you wanted to watch. Well, now they're all coming out of the woodwork that if you add it all up, you're paying more for it. I can imagine, how many different, I'm glad that you all are here on my YouTube show, but
Yeah.
how many different shows can you watch? And it just becomes so separated. And I don't know if like radio or TV talk show can be used the same way as far as TV shows and movies and things like that. I don't know. But yeah, Scott makes a great point. The current finance structure of Hollywood favors studios overwhelmingly. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's where their bread is buttered. And so
And I think they will fight to keep that money. And these streaming services will fight to keep that money. They don't
Right.
want to pay people what they're worth.
No.
Yeah.
Greg is not going to miss it. He says TV is effing garbage anyway. I'm going to miss it. What shows am I looking for? And it's terrible that I'm like having to think about it. But when my shows come back, I'm really into it. But when we were talking yesterday about the Emmy nominations, I was talking about how Vanderpump Rules, right, got their first Emmy nomination. And Emmy, it's a garbage TV show. I am sorry. It is not intellectual.
Yeah.
It's just voyeurism and that sort of reality, unstructured TV programming. You're going to see a hell of a lot more of that. Absolutely. Because that's not SAG-AFTRA. Those people are not part of SAG-AFTRA. It is quote unquote reality TV. They're not actors, supposedly. So yeah, there's going to be Top Chef, right? Survivor. Those are not SAG-AFTRA people. Now the hosts might be, but I don't know.
The behind the scenes people might be the, producers.
Well,
and all
SAG-AFTRA
that.
is just in front of the camera. So
it didn't. Remember at KGO, all of a sudden once like maybe 2 years ago, the producers voted to also become SAG-AFTRA. So you had board ops and producers that also joined the ranks.
Yeah, but I don't, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that this contract is their contract because they also had different contracts than we did. There was the producer, the off-air contract, and then there was the on-air contract.
That's true.
Again, I haven't seen their contracts. I don't know who, but they keep saying actors, people in front of the camera, and the only people on the sets are going to be the directors, apparently.
Yeah.
Because there's not going to be any writers, and there's not going to be any actors or anything like that. John says, I subscribe to Hulu, Disney, ESPN bundle, and Netflix. I have Amazon Prime Video with a few channel subscriptions, and I have YouTube TV. Whew! Cable is only for internet connection and basic TV. Wow. Yeah. Think about that, though. Is that what we want? Do we? And maybe we do. That's what we moved towards, right? I don't know. I feel bad. Even Emily Blunt, apparently the cast of Oppenheimer had their premiere early because they saw this coming. They walked out. They had it early because they did not want to be there when this strike began. Yeah. So there's Comic-Con was mentioned in that news report that I played you. Movie premieres, again, the Emmys may not even go on in 2 months, depending on how long this lasts. I hope it does not last long. I hope they figure out AI. I hope they figure out residuals. These studios are making money hand over fist.
Yeah.
I mean, they want more money. They want more money and they don't want to share. I mean, Bob Iger, who makes $27 million a year, it's pretty rich, pun intended, for him to act like it's just going to be so disrupted for, yes, the food service people and all the off air, behind the scenes people. Yes, it is. Yeah. But that's not what they care about. That's not why they're crowing about it. They just don't want to pay. And, I understand the business aspect of it, but people love their television and they're going to get fed up with reality television. They want their favorite shows to come back on. Let me squeeze this in before we go to Kim's news, because then we'll talk about it on the other side. I was watching this reality TV show with one of my favorite actors from Schitt's Creek, Dan Levy. Has anyone seen The Big Brunch? Anybody? I'd heard of it. I'd seen a news report about it before it came out, just because I follow Hollywood news, and it was a new show that he was hosting. And basically, The Big Brunch, it's a cooking competition where a bunch of people make different types of brunches. It's the first season. They could probably work it, talking about behind the scenes people, the editors, the music, how they pan to people, the cuts to make the show move a little faster. That's what Top Chef is great at, right? The suspense, the music, all that kind of creates the show. Very, very cute. It's called The Big Brunch. I only was able to watch the first 2 episodes, and then I was worried they canceled it because that was all that was offered on my flight home from Hawaii. Apparently there's 8 episodes. When we come back, the reason why I'm bringing this up also is it has to do with streaming. But when we come back, apparently Brunch is killing off relationships between men and women. Gay relationships, maybe not so much, because apparently stereotypically Brunch is big within the LGBTQ community.
What's wrong with part of that community?
What?
What's wrong with Brunch?
Oh, nothing's wrong with Brunch, but I'll tell you why it could be destroying male-female relationships, heterosexual couples on the other side of that. And 6 out of 10 young men are single. Why? It all has to do with what we're also talking about, technology, and the fact that there is certain kind of entertainment right at your fingertips. So that's all coming up right after Kim's news.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Let's talk about the heat. Temperatures have reached at least 110 degrees throughout the Southwest over the last couple of weeks. Forecasters don't expect that to change anytime soon either. Phoenix, Arizona is just 5 days away from matching a near 50-year-old record for consecutive days at 110 degrees or higher. Palm Springs, California, expected to hit 119. Death Valley could hit 130 degrees later today. Of course, as Nikki mentioned, film and television production grinding to a halt in Hollywood. The union representing 160,000 actors going on strike, joining Hollywood writers who have been on strike for nearly 2.5 months already. It's the biggest entertainment shutdown in more than 40 years, as Nikki was mentioning, and industry experts say new TV series, movies, they'll soon dry up. The unions want more compensation and safeguards against the use of artificial intelligence, which they fear will replace human actors and writers as well. The governor of Vermont says the flooding in his state is really worse than he ever imagined. Phil Scott is his name. He toured some of the hardest hit areas in his state, as well as his hometown of Bear. Officials say no deaths have been directly connected to these floods, but there have been more than 200 flood rescues and 100 more evacuations in Vermont. Meanwhile, city officials say 24 unmarked graves believed to be connected to the 1921 Tulsa race massacre have now been unearthed. A 2-day test excavation scheduled for today and tomorrow at Tulsa's Oaklawn Cemetery going on. An estimated 300 Black people were killed when the Greenwood neighborhood known as the Black Wall Street burned down. Meanwhile, residents of Tulsa, Oklahoma, trying to pay their utilities by phone, are wondering why they're being asked if they want that bill supersized. The city's trying to find out why calls intended for a utility agent went to the local McDonald's instead. McDonald's employees say they've been slammed with people trying to pay their utility bills this week. Get your wires crossed, people. This is disturbing, but good to know anyway, I guess. Former President Trump is going to be hosting a screening of the box office hit called Sound of Freedom at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey next week. It's a movie that tells the story of a Homeland Security Department agent working to rescue children from sex trafficking in Colombia. The film has become popular in conservative circles, but it's drawn criticism as the leading role is played by Passion of the Christ star Jim Caviezel, who has promoted QAnon conspiracy theories in the past. The movie grossed nearly $50 million since its release on July 4th, so it's becoming big in the QAnon circles. And lastly, the city of Long Beach will pay the guardian of a child $300,000 after the 7-year-old was burned by a cup of noodle soup in 2021.
Ouch.
This lawsuit filed last year cited negligence at a day camp run by the city of Long Beach because the child bought a cup of noodles and then was handed the styrofoam cup filled with boiling water. 7-year-old child.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
The
I don't
cup
even
should
trust
be-
myself with that.
No, the cup should be filled with hot water and then the noodles allowed to soften. Instead, the staff allegedly filled the cup with the water, microwaved the entire thing. The cup spilled on the child, causing severe burns and scarring. So the
Oh,
city
no.
council approved a settlement. $300,000 doesn't seem like enough in that case, but they approved this settlement. So case closed. But yeah, you don't hand a kid a cup of boiling water. And
You don't hand
say,
me a cup of boiling
No.
water. I mean, yeah, I
Mm-mm.
just made ramen, like kind of a cup of noodles, but it wasn't a cup of noodles yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was even telling myself, I'm like, just put it on the counter because those
Let
things.
it sit.
Yeah, well, the cup itself is not that sturdy. I mean, it's styrofoam. Mine was of cardboard, but I know the
Yeah.
cup of noodles, it's flimsy. And so yeah,
Right.
you don't hand a kid anything really liquidy anyway. I don't know what the hell are you talking about. They're gonna spill it. You know they're gonna spill it.
Yeah. That's it. I'm Kim McAllister, and it's the Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, so definitely going on strike. We'll continue to follow the fallout from all of this. And again, I was just looking on Twitter, and they did make it clear that the strike does not impact audio, that kind of part of the union. The AFTRA part of the union, I think. It's
Right.
just TV theatrical is where you're going to see the impact of this. And again, yes, you are going to see more reality TV shows. So the Big Brunch, 10 chefs compete for $300,000 as they put together dishes all surrounding brunch. And it's hosted by Dan Levy. I like brunch because I don't eat breakfast very often. And I like brunch because I can get things more lunch-like. Are you an egg person, a pancake person, a typical breakfast food type person, Kim?
I don't like sausage and bacon. I know that's sacrilege to a lot of people, but I like a pancake, some scrambled eggs, you bet.
What's your favorite breakfast? If you had to go to a restaurant and order, and you can have any breakfast that you want.
I like a scramble.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Skillet breakfast with like scrambled eggs and bell peppers and olives, a little sour cream on there. Like I like a skillet breakfast. I
used to like the skillets. Like
Yeah.
they'll put like home fries or potatoes in it and things like that. It's too much for me right now. But I'm telling you, and I don't know if I had you on when I mentioned it. Right now, the dream breakfast that I want again was the Loco Moco that I had at the Fairmont in Hawaii with short rib. I will never have. I will have Loco Moco again. But every time I look at that hamburger patty, I'm going to be like, you should be short rib because it was bomb. But I do like, if I'm just going to have a basic breakfast, over medium egg, 2 pieces of bacon, sourdough toast made into a sandwich that's ooey gooey and delicious. That's probably my go-to. But a lot of people, what is included in brunch, do you think, that attracts a lot of people to brunch at restaurants? Wonder what is included sometimes. Often, a lot of times.
Champagne, mimosas.
Yeah. So there was an article talking about how the bottomless brunch, which you'll find it at many restaurants, bottomless mimosas, right? We go to Opill a lot, which is a Greek restaurant. And they do brunches with bottomless mimosas. And pardon me, and they have different juices and all kinds of things. And so what they're saying is, this one writer was saying that bottomless brunch has become a C blocker for men. That it's not breaking up, but it's reducing the chances of men and women meeting up because men are not going to these brunches. Food writer.
That's where you go with your girlfriends or whatever?
Yes. Or again, it's very popular within the LGBTQ community. So this is also obviously a heteronormative type of take on the brunch. But food writer Carly Rutherson wrote this column. And she says the popularity of bottomless brunches has changed the dating scene, but not in a good way. She said, restaurants like bottomless brunches because it's cheaper food. Breakfast foods are normally cheaper. And you can get a lot of cheap champagne, put some yummy juice in it, and people will just drink it all day long. But the downside is men largely heterosexual men are not going to these brunches. So for instance, she's like, I would ask men to go. They say, no, I'd rather go out at night. But the reason why women like it is they can go to bottomless brunch. They can get a little tipsy. They could go home on a Sunday, let's say, take a nap because they don't have anything to do, wake up, have like a little dinner, and then go back to bed. And they feel great in the morning because they weren't drinking late at night. On the other hand, men like to be at home, maybe watching a game and not necessarily at these brunch spots necessarily. So if I have any single men watching right now, and you're heterosexual men, of course, and you're looking for ladies, go to the bottomless brunch, go out, because the other concerning story out there was new Pew Research data that found 63% of men under the age of 30 are electively single. Now, that is up from 51% just in 2019. So that's quite the jump. It's 12% jump in just a couple of years. And why do you think that these men are single? They're not going to bottomless brunch. They're staying home on their phones, gaming, or looking at online porn. And that's becoming a big problem. You guys are making me hungry, and I usually don't eat at this time. We're talking about brunch food right here. Yeah. Omelets? Kim, no omelets. I don't like omelets. A scramble like Kim wants, or Kim in the comments, not Kim McAllister. I don't like omelets. It's too much egg for me. People are like, I want a 3-egg omelet. I don't want to eat 3 eggs unless they're deviled, and then I'll eat them. But that's it. Natalie says eggs Benedict. Wes says go to a drag brunch.
Yeah.
That's just combining the best of both worlds. I saw this TikTok video, and it was like from the perspective of a straight man trying to be an ally to his gay brothers. And they're like, we've only gone to 3 brunches today. We need to get going. He's like, I'm completely hammered. I cannot keep going to all these brunches. Bottomless brunch, great idea. Bottomless mimosas. Yeah. So when they say bottomless brunch, it could be like a buffet and then bottomless mimosas or something like that. Natalie's a fan of the egg in the hole. It's okay. I mean, it's probably less messy than my sandwich that I make, the egg in the hole, but It's brunch on the way to Tenuda's. Ooh, what a day. Oh, there you go. Tenuda's Winery.
Mm-hmm.
Pick up a bottle of Mark Thompson's wine. Egg Florentine with spinach. I don't think I've ever had an egg Florentine. I shouldn't judge so much. Fruit, mango, papaya. That's from Karen. Chicken and French toast or waffles or pancakes. I will take fried chicken any day and twice on Sunday, actually. Absolutely delicious. Karen says eggs Benedict with avocado and steak, tomatoes. So good. Yeah. Bloody Marys. That's speaking my husband's language. Drag brunch is the best. So Kim, you've gone to a drag brunch. Kim in the comments. I've never been there. I've been to drag bingo, and that's fun, but that's in the evening. That's not bottomless brunch. But yeah, I think that when we're talking about where to find people to date, bottomless brunches are a good idea. But I mean, do you think that men are happy not putting themselves out there? Because that's concerning. 6 out of 10 young men are single. 6 out of 10. That doesn't bode well for our numbers. The male numbers come sharply against just 34% of women under 30 who say they're single, which has only seen a slight pandemic rise in that age group. So it's not as if it's just all single people kind of shunning each other. Women seem to be able to put themselves out there. But 6 out of 10 men are apparently staying home on their phone, gaming, and it's not just porn, gaming on electronics, watching their TV, scrolling their social media, and then online porn. And they were saying in this study that men are getting satisfied just by looking at porn, that they don't feel the need to kind of, I guess, get dressed and go out and actually meet a real life human being eyeball to eyeball. I find that disturbing. I mean, I'm not trying to yuck your yum if you're into online porn, like whatever. But if it's stopping you from meeting real people in real life, that's a problem. Karen says introverted men who don't know how to get along with others, that's a bigger social problem that will affect all strata of our society. Think about it. You know, the term introvert is interesting, Karen. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because a lot of people might have considered themselves introverts when COVID hit, right? Oh, I'm so happy to be alone. I don't have to go out. But I think the definition of introvert is you actually get re-energized by being alone. And being in public drains your energy, right? It drains you. You have to kind of build yourself up for it. My son is kind of that introvert extrovert. He is totally fine being on his own and being happy. And he likes to be around other people as well. But again, it's this kind of different definition of what do you consider an introvert. I think that there are some men that just don't know how to interact. And are we raising a generation of men that young boys that don't even know how to have an eyeball to eyeball conversation with people?
Yeah, that's that doesn't bode well for relationships. And then you had COVID, and then you have a generation of kids that have, less ability to interact with each other. Schools are struggling because kids somehow, I don't know, they forgot how to deal with each other. And so I tend to think it's a problem that's only getting worse. But
how do you fight it though?
Aren't there all kinds of studies that say like men who aren't married don't live as long of a life?
Oh, absolutely. I was just throwing that in a man's face the other day. I was like, because you don't have a wife nagging you or a partner nagging you to go to the doctor. That's what it is. And women don't live as long because men don't nag women to take care of themselves, and women are stressed, and women have that mental load that is invisible, right?
So I don't know. I mean, and then does that affect the birth rate in America? I mean, I know people are already choosing not to have kids more often, but that's kind of scary. And I don't like that. It makes me sad to think of people alone looking at a computer screen all the time.
I know, but I mean, think about it's not just a computer screen, it's your phone. I mean, how many times even if you're in a social situation, you just see somebody sitting on their phone, not interacting with somebody. Anonymous says 6 out of 10 because women on dating apps don't think a simple, hey, how it's going is a valid introduction. You know what? I totally get that. I see posts online all the time of, I need a little bit more than just, hey, how are you doing? I need more from the guy. It's like,
but I don't think we blame women. I don't think we blame women for expecting more than a, hey, what's up?
Well, I mean, if you're on an app, what are you supposed to say? If you were at a bar, what would you want a guy to say?
Something funny, something that catches my attention and makes me intrigued by who you are.
Really?
An observation about something in passing, something. Yeah.
Well, but I mean, you start with, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you?
Hey,
like it is a typical introduction. If a guy came up to me, if I'm standing at a bar, Kim, and a guy walks up to me and it's not, hey, how are you doing? Or hi, and it's telling me a joke. Hey, weirdo, go take your comedy somewhere else. Right. That's weird. Right. So I think that women can be a little harsh. I do think on both sexes, and I'm only talking heteronormative because it's the only thing I freaking know, guys. Okay, but I would say that looks, all those sorts of things, especially on dating apps, how tall you are, the weight, eye color, stop already. Remember we were talking about that Indian matchmaking yesterday, and the matchmaker was like, stop. You don't need all of that. That doesn't matter after a while. It really shouldn't matter. If you get to know somebody and their personality, that does, because how many times do you see like a hot couple walking down the street and they're arguing, or somebody that's very good looking and dates another very good looking person, and then they're insecure. They're like, my partners, all they care about is how they look. Why do you care about how you look? You should just be coming home to me, blah, 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 blah. Nick, I kind of feel bad for you, man. Nick says sex is too much work for too little reward. Too little reward, my friend. Too little reward. I mean, there should be at least a little euphoria involved in it, should there not? I mean, come on. Karen says maybe antisocial is a better phrase. Are men becoming antisocial because they're lacking something? They're lacking some sort of human connection. There's these groups, these men's groups, right? And they go out and they go hunting together because it's very hard. We've seen the statistics of men as they age keeping up male relationships.
Right.
So for instance, my husband just joined this bike group, right? And they do things all the time. And sometimes I get jealous. I'm like, oh, you're going out with your friends again. But on the flip side, I think to myself, it's good that he has. My husband's always had a group of friends though. So it's not, but when you have kids and a wife and a job and household, all that, it's hard to just go out without some sort of set structure. Right. So we are going to go ride our bikes today and we're going to go do this. It's hard to plan things.
Your husband, though, isn't, it doesn't really fit into this box of antisocial. He's very gregarious, very outgoing. Like, you walk into a room and he's the guy, like everyone's like, I want to talk to him. Right.
That's very sweet. I'm sure he's going to love it. Because then there's me, who you think is very social. Sometimes I'm just done talking to people. I'm like, yeah, I'm out. Goodbye. I'm leaving. I'm the queen of walking away from conversations. Not to be rude, but I'm not going to stand here all day.
I'm sorry. I've already talked about SAG-AFTRA. Let me give you the show link. Thank you.
I was recently at a party and somebody was a fan of our show on KGO, Kim, and very upset that KGO is gone. And then somebody else walks over and we're having a conversation, and then it devolved into like a political conversation. We started talking about lithium batteries, and I gave them their own mini Nikki Medoro show, and I was 3 sheets to the wind also. And so I was like, there you go. Watch my YouTube channel. And they both one was very conservative, one was like liberal, loved my show before, and we were just making and I missed it so much, but that's why I love doing this. But it's true, like having conversations with people can be draining for some, depending on your personality. My personality, you want to talk about issues, I'll talk to you about it for a bit, and then all of a sudden I'm like, and then there's the bar, and I'm gonna be going away. Sandy says you need to meet in person to know if there's chemistry. No way to gauge chemistry on a screen.
That's true.
I do think online dating, I'll even go back further, Kim. I think texting took so much out of face-to-face human relations. Breaking up with somebody, asking somebody to the dance, right? How many of you had to actually pick up the phone or walk up to a person at school and ask them out? Now you could pick up your phone, be like, do you want to go out? And if they say no, I mean, the worst thing that you have to fear is that they screenshot it and shared it on social media, I guess. But you got to get your, confidence up to ask somebody out of your mouth or face to face to do something. And texting took that away. And now with dating apps, you could just see somebody like, hey, how you doing? And there's no risk. And so there's less reward, I would say, to dating in that way. I don't know. Anonymous says Tinder women have 1,000 guys in their inbox. Sorry, I don't want to play the game when I'm competing against the unknown. At least in a bar, you only have one competitor, not 999. It's a good point. But again, what's that opening line? And is it good enough? And it's obviously easier. So this is what I always tell. Well, I used to tell. I don't have that many single friends anymore. But I used to tell my single friends when we would go out. I'm like, obviously, we're going to have an eye on you. But if you want a guy to approach you, there's no freaking way they're going to come up to our group of 6. Unless they have top confidence, right?
Yeah.
Go stand at the freaking bar and get your own drink for a second, right? By yourself. Don't bring somebody to the bathroom with you. Stand in line by yourself, because then if there's a guy waiting for the bathroom as well, they'll talk to you. It's very intimidating to walk up to a group of women and try to hit on one of them, right? There has to be that bravery involved. You have to stand there and have that conversation. And I just feel like, we become a bit wussy and scared. I was talking to my daughter actually, and her and her friends wanted to go out, and one of her friends likes another friend and all sorts of things. And I'm like, dude, if you ask someone to be your girlfriend or boyfriend, does that actually even happen face to face? Or does the entire relationship just live on the phone? Right? I mean, how does that work nowadays? It's hard. Let's see. Let's read some more of these comments. Jim says, I love talking to my friends' autistic kids because they have great conversation with their words, not with their implied body reactions, because they don't do that. Okay. That's interesting. John says one of the best places to meet people is at the grocery store on a Friday night after 5 or 6 p.m. Is that still true?
I think so.
I've never been approached in a grocery store. Have you, Kim? That's not something that's ever happened to me
I've
before.
had some smiles and winks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh. From you to them or them to you?
Mostly when I used to live in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What? I don't know.
And no, not from me to them. I'm not winking at people at Safeway.
I mean, God, because again, we've been married, it seems like forever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the last time I remember going up to guys and like introducing myself, it wasn't even for me, it was for a friend. And it was funny because when you're already in a relationship, you have way more confidence talking to the opposite sex or whatever you're attracted to, because you don't have to worry about being rejected. You're like, don't worry about me, I already got somebody, right? But the last time I did it, they're married. So I should be a matchmaker. I should be on that Puerto Rican Italian matchmaking, and I bat 1,000 over here. John says you can tell a lot about a person according to what they have in their grocery cart. That is not fair, because sometimes you're shopping for other people. Because if somebody saw my cart sometimes, you would think that I was a total alcoholic or I have no self-control when it comes to cookies and chips or whatever. So that's not fair. Do not judge me on my shopping cart. All right. So I don't know. I think the men out there, get off the phones, get off the online porn too. I mean, there's nothing, I'm not going to, again, if you want to look at online porn, that's for you. But I would say when you're looking at statistics to say 6 in 10 men are single electively because they're getting their needs met at home. I don't know. They said, this is other statistic talking about friends in the early 90s, 55% of men reported to have 6 or more close friends. It dwindled down to 27% in 2021. And today, that's 2021. Today, 2023, only 15% of men say they have zero, big goose egg, no personal friendships. That's nuts.
How sad and lonely.
That is really lonely. I feel for you guys out there. I think women are better at maintaining relationships with other women.
Yeah.
Although it is definitely, and I think at our age, and Kim, I think you can agree with this, it is definitely quality versus quantity when you get older.
Yeah.
Because as you remember when you were younger, you're like, oh, I have a huge clique of friends.
Right.
And all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I don't want to hang out with all these people.
Yeah.
Way too much drama.
Well, it takes work. I mean, it takes work to, call people and check in on them and make sure that you are keeping those relationships alive. And so you really kind of whittle it down to the ones that you care about the most.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Coming up in the second part of the show, we're going to talk about women specifically, single women with kids. Apparently, Kim, mommunes are growing in popularity.
Mommunes?
Mommunes. It's a play on the word commune.
Oh, mommune. Okay.
Yes. And not only that, just buying big lots of land and having multifamilies live on it. Could you do that? We'll talk about that in the second part of the show because, back in the early days, especially here in America, it was multi-family farms, right? So I had a house and then, maybe an acre away, mom and pa had a house, and a couple acres away, my brother and sister had a house, and we all lived on the same land. And if somebody needed to watch the children, that happened. Well, when the suburbs were developed, and people had to go to war and the family structure changed, it became, single family living, right? Single family homes became the norm. Well, is it time to move back to multifamily, multi-generational housing? And if you were a single parent, even though this talks about mommunes, I'm going to talk about single dads as well. Would you be open to, actually raising your family with another single parent? Do you think that would solve a lot of problems or create a lot of problems? Because I kind of go back and forth on how I feel about it, because there would have to be a lot of rules, a lot of understanding.
You would have to
get a roommate. I mean,
you would have to really have like minds when it comes to parenting strategies and everything.
Exactly.
Because people are so different. Like I don't want to live in a house where someone smacks their kid or is constantly shaming them or chastising them. So it would have to be a really special situation, or I guess you'd be so poor that you wouldn't have any other choice, right? Than to cohabitate. I don't know.
Yeah, so we'll get into that. You guys tell me what what you would do with that. Also, when we come back, we'll touch a little bit. Again, explain it to me, because apparently I am missing the outrage on this story. We'll update the investigation into who brought the cocaine into the White House. I could give a rat's butt. I don't care about this story at all, but I just find it on the reason why I'm talking about it, even though I don't care about it, is because people are outraged at this update into the investigation. And it's a big yawner for me. What am I missing? You guys let me know in the comments. Also, big news from the FDA over the counter birth control pill that will soon be offered, but there's no age restrictions. Does that bother you, or do you like that? Let me know in the comments. And that's all coming up right after Kim's news.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
So I only have 2 stories to bring you this time around, but both of them I think are worthy of a longer discussion. Let's talk about these guys. These are the Russian generals who are either, quote, resting, have been fired, believed to be dead. Yeah, this is what happens to you when you speak out in Russia, apparently. The losing one general, according to CNN, is seen as unfortunate, but to lose 2 within 24 hours, they say looks careless. So Russian command in southern Ukraine, 2 cases apparently are illustrating deficiencies and dissent among Russia's military leadership. Again, the article from CNN. But one of the casualties on Tuesday, when a Ukrainian missile hit a hotel that had been taken over by the Russian military, was Lieutenant General Oleg Tsokov. He was the deputy commander of the Southern Military District. He was a key figure in Russia's defense of occupied areas in southern Ukraine. He is thought to have been killed. There is another general here, that Major General Ivan Popov. He is a commander. He rallied against what he called the treachery of Russia's military leadership and inadequacies, causing mass casualties among his men. He talked about major shortcomings in Russian defenses and raised some questions about what's going on with the Russian military. And Popov is now, I guess, missing. So yeah, this is what happens when you speak out. And it shows that there are fractures in the Russian military as well, as you don't normally dissent, but now apparently people are dissenting. Let's talk a little bit about Disneyland, because something is happening at Disneyland that isn't quite normal. Usually summertime, it would be jam-packed to the gills, right? You have a hard time getting places. It's one of those things where, you take a step and there's someone in front of you, so you have to slow down your walk. No, apparently this summer, it has not been that way. Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando are finding wait times for rides and attractions have shortened. There are videos being posted on social media showing really thin crowds. As a matter of fact, on July 4th, the holiday, when you would think that Disneyland or Disney World would be jam-packed, one of the park goers says nobody was there. This woman tells CNN, usually when you walk into the park, they have Hollywood Boulevard, which is like the main thoroughfare, and it's packed with people. At one point around noon, she said, I turned around, no one was on the street. It was a strange sight to see. Her name is Kayla Peretti. She's a content creator who focuses on Disney-themed content and a travel agent as well. And she said she was shocked by how few people that she has seen in the park. And this is being blamed on possibly extreme weather and heat in Florida. People just don't want to go when it's so hot, maybe. There is a warning about political climate in Florida that's prompted travel warnings from some groups. So it could be that people are not wanting to support Florida right now. So tourism has decreased.
So that's what I want to ask you. Who do you think benefits in this narrative more? the Democrats or the Republicans, because Jim just said, the right's going to love it, go woke or go broke, but it's shooting themselves in the foot. Obviously, this brings tourism and tax dollars to the state of Florida. And so who's going broke here, right?
When you go to take a trip to Disney World in Florida, you don't just go to Disney World. Right. I mean, you're staying in a hotel with the hotel tax being, going back to whatever county of Florida or whatever state. You're dining, that's tax revenue. You're going to other places. My sister just went to Florida for a rowing competition, a national rowing competition for kids. And they didn't go to Disney World, but they went all over Florida. They went to see wildlife. They went to the Everglades. They took one of those airboats. They did all these things that brought money to the state of Florida. They had a wonderful time, even though my sister said it was really, really hot.
Yeah.
So, if you're celebrating people not going to Disney World because you're a conservative, you're really shooting yourself in the foot if you're a Floridian.
Yeah, but it's interesting. And I'm sorry if you mentioned it. Was Disneyland on that list, or is it just in Florida?
It's just Florida, Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando.
Okay, because I was wondering, because I was just saw an article that Disneyland was still packed, and they have this problem of trying to deal with the crowds and everything like that, which could be the response from those go woke, go broke people. It's like Disneyland's not having any sort of problem, and it hasn't been as hot out here either. I bet it's just a confluence of things. I think some people don't want to visit Florida because they don't want to give any of their tax.
Right.
Some people don't want to go to Disney World because they don't like the politics of Disney. I think that and then some people just don't want to stand in line for hours on end in Florida humidity and heat. That would be me too. I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that at all.
Yeah, that's really hot and miserable. What do you think is worse, Disney World in the extreme heat or Disney World in a thunderstorm when it's raining?
Oh, and it's not hot?
It might
or
be
it is
warm.
hot.
It might.
Like
they have
humidity.
thunderstorms.
Well,
when
they
it's
have
hot,
humidity no matter what. I don't want to.
Yeah.
You know what? If I'm paying out the ass to go someplace,
Yeah.
it better be empty if I'm going to stand in the rain and go to the rides. Like when I went to Universal with my daughter and her friends for her birthday, and it was storming. It was worth it because we got on every ride over and over again as quickly as we wanted to. So there was a payoff. If I'm still standing in hour-long lines in the pouring rain in Florida, of all places, no, not happening at all.
I've been to Disneyland before where it has been raining and it's fun and interesting for the first maybe hour and a half, and then your hands start to get red and numb and your feet are wet inside your shoes and you're done.
Yeah, I remember I went before I got married, my mom and my brother and I, we went to New York, and it was, kind of a summer thing, but they would have some sort of storms. And I remember it started to rain and it was fun and I didn't care. And then all of a sudden my jeans were like sticking to my legs and it hurt to walk. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. And I became an angry New Yorker real quick. So
yeah, no, thank you.
No, thank you.
I'm Kim McAllister, and this is the Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you, Kim. All right. So can you guys explain to me if I'm supposed to be upset about cocaine in the White House? I made this comment. So one of my old colleagues, one of my old bosses actually, she tweeted something to the effect of, are we really supposed to believe this update from the Secret Service? And I'm going to play it for you now. And, I think we should all keep in mind that a lot of people visit the White House. A lot of people work at the White House. So if you haven't heard, the investigation didn't turn up much. Here we go.
No.
Oh, here.
On this small plastic baggie of cocaine, which was found inside what I would call a working entrance of the White House on West Executive Avenue. It was found Sunday evening, July 2nd. Testing has been done for DNA, for fingerprints, and nothing was found of a forensic nature that can be used to compare to the list of individuals that the investigation determined had access to that area. Sources tell me they went through the entrance logs and video and were able to compile a list of several hundred people who in the preceding days prior to that Sunday evening had been through that location. Now, that location on the ground floor is on the way to the Situation Room, but at the moment, that Situation Room is not in use. It's undergoing construction, and a separate alternative Situation Room is being utilized elsewhere, not in the White House, but across in the Executive Office building. So a limited universe of people who would be going through there, but a large one, because on weekends and after hours, there are staff-led tours that can bring in family members, friends, and so forth to see parts of the West Wing. They use that entrance. Contractors use that entrance, employees, and so forth. So they compiled a large list of individuals, and there was video of the passageways and people walking about, but there was no usable video focused on the storage cubbies in that secure area where a visitor would put a cell phone or electronic device before going deeper into the West Wing.
Are you buying it? That makes total sense to me. I'm like, there's a ton of people, a large group of, it's like hundreds of people walking through this in the past couple of days. Like, and I'm sorry, people do cocaine. I don't want to be flippant about drug use, okay?
No.
But I highly doubt this is the first time cocaine has been on the grounds of the White House.
No. Okay, but let me say it differently. Because anything could go in there, right? What if it was a hand grenade? What if it was some type of explosive device? What if it was all these other, I mean, they needed to have better security there. You can't tell me there's not cameras. Like, it's more better security than a Las Vegas casino. Cameras from every angle. They should be able to see exactly what everyone's doing. And they should be able to go back to the tapes and find out. So how they don't know, not that I care who's putting cocaine in a cubby at the White House anyway, but again, it could have been something, dangerous. Right? And it shows a lax security.
They probably would still have to go through. I would say like a grenade or a gun has to go through the metal detectors. I'm assuming they still have to go through metal detectors. A baggie of cocaine in a plastic bag is not going to set off the metal detectors.
No, but I want them to have better security. Like they should know. They should be able to go back to the tapes and know. So either they have security problems at the White House and they need to bump it up, or they know who did it and they don't want to tell us who did it.
Nah, I mean, again, Biden wasn't even there. If anybody, everyone's making the Don Jr. joke, right? Because he always looks like he's high on cocaine. Deidre says it might have been a visitor who panicked. Like, I'm going to put this in my cubby. I don't know why you would bring cocaine with you on vacation to Washington, D.C. and go to the White House with it, but whatever. But also the reason why I also wanted to play that news report was because she said staff visitor tours. So you can imagine with the political climate there could be, hey, I'm going to bring you and maybe we could change the narrative of Biden. It's a non-story. But people, and that's why I was surprised when this came out that they couldn't figure out who it was. Oh my God, they're hiding something. This is the issue that you're most concerned about. Like someone said earlier in the comments, if it was fentanyl, I would be a little more concerned. Nick says it's easier to hide a baggie than a hand grenade. Exactly. I mean, a baggie of cocaine. Did you see the picture of it? You can hide that between your money, right? Cash. Like it's not hard to hide this stuff. Today, cocaine, tomorrow, anthrax and bombs. Yes, but they do have detections for that as well. The lack of security is what I get. I understand. I guess because it is cocaine. And then I was reading, and then Kim did the story yesterday, the story of Jackie O finding that pot plant at their home in Cape Cod. These things happen. I guess. I don't know. I'm not trying to make light of security. I think that's a valid point. But as far as just what it is, cocaine at the White House, yawn. Like, okay, sure. Now, a different type of drug, let's just call it that, you can talk about is the birth control pill. The FDA has approved the first over-the-counter birth control pill. It's called Opill. It's progestin only from the drug maker Perrigo. And it's going to be offered over the counter. I like this news, Kim, because obviously in response to Roe v. Wade, we want to make it easier for people to reduce the likelihood of an unintended pregnancy. When I saw, though, that this would have no age restrictions on sales, all of a sudden in my mind, I was like, oh, great, here we go. Here we go. Because now all of a sudden, all these very concerned parents who don't want little Sally popping a pill because she wants to have sex and they don't know about it are going to be up in arms.
So I'm thinking, and I thought about that too, but then I thought, well, little Sally's probably going to do it anyway.
Right.
And if little Sally is protecting herself, at least in this way,
right?
Go get it, Sally. Right? I mean, because I would rather, what is it, Sally 13, 16, whatever she is.
Whatever, yeah.
Whatever she's doing, I mean, I would hope that she doesn't. But if she does, we have to be more realistic about it. And at least she won't have an unintended pregnancy and then find herself in a state where she can't have an abortion if she so chooses, and that her entire future then is changed and laid out for her as a young mother.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Deidre writes in, I'm sure some right-wing nut job will take this to because it promotes promiscuity. Yeah, but it's that debate we constantly have about sex ed in general, right? Or condoms and vending machines. It's like, you're promoting sex, you're influencing my child. Look, we don't have to influence your child. You know what's influencing your child to have sex? Hormones. Hormones are doing it. Their bodies are telling them they want to, they're ready to go. And if they are, and they're going to do it, I would much rather have my child protected. Now, Kim, how would you feel if your daughter or son got on birth control or got their partner on birth control without you knowing?
Sad that they didn't come to me.
Right.
Sad that they would feel they had to hide that from me, but at least glad that they were smart enough to have taken steps. Hoping that they would use a condom because the birth control pill doesn't prevent sexually transmitted diseases.
Yes, very good point. Good point.
However, at least grateful that they're protecting themselves in some way.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I just feel like I would take it, it would be hard because I'd feel the same emotions you just were mentioning, Kim, but that I raised my kids smart enough to go out there and get it themselves. Like, okay, at least you understand that you need to protect yourself, at least against pregnancy. And it shouldn't be stigmatized when we all know. I mean, we all know that teenage sex happens all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's movies and TV shows for generations about it, right? I mean, your first time and going to all these things we know happen, and yet we're trying to ignore something safe that can be taken. I mean, the only also thing that concerns me is that it's not going to be covered by insurance, I don't believe. So
I had this discussion with Julia. We're doing my 13-year-old daughter. We're watching the Gilmore Girls, all 7 seasons, right?
Okay, that's fun.
And we're on season 7. But
you made your way through.
Yeah, we've been at this for several months now. But I don't know what happened last night, but there's a lot of sexual references, especially as she goes into college and what have you.
Well, of course, because it's a single mom. If you haven't watched Gilmore Girls with her daughter, raising her daughter.
And there's a lot of references to getting laid, and there's, some things that I have to pause and we have to talk about the language and whatever.
I love you.
I know, it's so annoying. Now I'm to the point where I just kind of look at the screen and I'm like, I'll kind of look.
You got this, right? We'll talk about it.
Look at me, and she'll be like, okay. So, but last night I did pause it and we did talk, and I said, not that I want you to go out and have sex, because I don't think you're ready, and I don't think, that this is a good time for you. But eventually that might be something you want to do. And she's like, ew, gross. I'll never want to do that.
The same. My daughter's the same. She's like, never. I will never let him.
I'll never do that. I'm like, that's fine. That's good. That's exactly what I want to hear.
Exactly.
However, when the moment comes, I really want you to know that you can talk to me and tell me about it, because I want to make sure you're safe.
Right.
I want to make sure that you're prepared. I want to take you to get you some medicine. I want to take you to get you the things that you need to keep yourself safe. And then we continued watching the show. And I'm not promoting any sexual activity on the part of a 13-year-old kid. I don't want her to do that at all, ever. But do I want her to be smart?
Die a virgin, Julia.
Exactly. Off to the nunnery with thee.
Be gone with you.
But I don't, I'm not, when she's in her teenage years, I don't want that. But, you have to be realistic. And we talked about having passion in the moment versus being prepared. She goes, well, how, if you're feeling passion in the moment, then how do you make sure that you take precautions? So we talked about that, and how, you have to think fast. You have to be prepared. You have to have these things on you. You have to,
be prepared.
But none of that. And just the fact that I'm having that conversation does not mean that I am advocating her doing any of that.
Exactly.
So I think that's the difference. But I have been confused in my life as to why birth control pills are prescription. You have to have a prescription for them anyway. Have you ever had your prescription run out and then you have like a month or two lapse
Yeah.
where you have nothing,
And then
and
you
you're
start
like,
all over
why?
again.
And
Yeah.
you got to go make sure if you got to go back to the doctor, if you can get an appointment, if you why do they make it so hard? Why don't they just say, it's a birth control pill? I mean,
Well, I think
come
it's the side
on.
effects, right? It's making sure that you
Yeah,
can take it. Again, this is what they also call a mini pill because it's only progestin only. It doesn't have
yeah,
the estrogen involved in that, which does have its own long-term health risks, especially
yeah.
for women, right? So I understand when you take something you want, possibly your doctor to talk about these risks, but
Sure.
this is the mini pill where it shouldn't have those besides the nausea and things that can happen with like a Tylenol or
Well, if
something
you
like
need it in
that.
a hurry, you need it in a hurry,
Well, there's
right?
also the morning after pill, I
Yep.
mean, there's other options if you kind of flub up in the moment, right? And again,
Mhm.
just to reiterate, as we all adults know, the pill does not protect against sexually transmitted diseases, which, you do need to talk to your kids about. You don't want your kids to get herpes or, gonorrhea or syphilis or whatever, or AIDS
AIDS,
or
right.
anything. It's just, there's so many other things that waiting, wanting to do it, being prepared to do it makes it easier. And that's kind of the message I give to my kids. It's like,
Yeah.
it's so much better. I know that, in the heat of the moment, you're at a party, you see
Mhm.
someone across the room or whatever, you've had the hots for somebody. I can understand. I've never had this conversation like this with my kids, but something to this effect. But it's
Yeah.
better if you want it, if you're with somebody I have made the point though that it's not going to be any good if you're too young anyway. So
I
I don't even
remember
bother
my
them.
dad talking to me about this. My dad, and I was surprised because you never think your dad's gonna be, and he goes, "Hey, listen, there's this thing called, you're gonna have these moments of passion." And I was like, "I am?" He's like, "You are.
You
You're gonna
are.
have these moments of passion where things might happen and things might progress faster than you intended or things whatever." He goes, "And that's normal. All of that's normal."
Oh,
And
that's sweet
everything
of
that you're
him.
it was the sweetest thing ever, and he's trying to prepare me and telling me that everything that's gonna happen to me is normal and that I shouldn't feel bad about any of it, but I do need to be smart and protect myself
Yes.
because
Don't be an
there are
idiot.
these passionate moments, and that's what I wanted to give my kids.
Right. Al Anonymous writes, long time ago in high school, my girlfriend's mom randomly took us to Planned Parenthood. It was awkward. Yeah, my dad randomly took my brother and I I'll never forget it, to the Martin Luther King Jr. main library in downtown San Jose. I remember we just were going to the library and he got us all
Yeah.
these like sex ed books type of things,
Oh,
like
okay.
age appropriate, about your
Yeah.
body and things like. But it was really funny, especially because my mom was a nurse, right?
Mhm.
And then I remember like she just randomly like put condoms are available, right? It's not a big deal, mainly for my brother, not so much for me.
Yeah.
Even though obviously I should take them, but I handled a lot of my early birth control stuff myself
Yeah.
because I knew when I was ready to do it. And thankfully, I never have been put in a position of having an
Yeah.
unwanted pregnancy, even though my son teases my daughter all the time that she wasn't wanted, which was not the story of it. It's just that I did not know that I was pregnant when I found out I was pregnant. So,
Yeah.
no, it wasn't planned, but it was
Right.
fine. I'd been married
Yeah.
for 4 freaking years, right?
Yeah.
It was like, okay, it's time. But yeah, that's always, he's like, I was wanted. She was not. I was like, that's not
Oh.
nice. But no, they were definitely both wanted.
Well,
But yeah,
you have and this is what New York Governor Kathy Hochul said today. She said, in an era where you have rollbacks of protections of
yes.
reproductive rights for women, this is a small step forward with the Opill.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And we have to do it, because honestly, I would love if every single pregnancy that there ever was wanted, right? Was
yeah.
totally planned. But that's not how, that is so far from how
Mhm.
reality is, right? And so people end up as single parents if the other person doesn't want the child, isn't in the picture, and I'll be honest, or don't know who the person is, right? I mean,
Yeah,
if you are sexually active and single and you're out there, and sometimes you don't know, sometimes you have one night stands, sometimes those things also happen. People die, right? You end up by yourself, divorce, whatever. There's many reasons why people end up single, and so if this is a step in helping put off unwanted pregnancies and all that comes with it, because it's hard to be a parent when there's 2 of you, let alone 1 of you. So that brings me to the next topic that I wanted to talk about, which was Mommunes. Now, this is a play on the word communes, and it's single moms seeking financial help and emotional support in raising children. Apparently there's this, and I don't know if there's other ones, but on the Today Show, they featured this online matching service, and it's called Cabode. Co-abode.
Okay.
I'm going to show you the website right now. So here it is, single mothers house sharing. Okay. And so you're there, and it gives housing, moving, single parenting, childcare, all these resources. The woman says, we know that it takes a community to raise children, and that so many of our single mothers deserve a much more supportive community than we give them. And so Mommunes have come out of it. One woman explained that the idea grew out of a personal experience where she found a match for herself after the divorce. She put up a notice, interviewed 17 single mothers, matched with one, and decided to help the others that she turned down. Co-abode members have reduced household expenses by an average of 40% by sharing costs. More than the financial gains, the mothers gain companionship as well as more time to themselves. Guess they get an average of 56 additional hours to themselves each month.
Wow.
By living with other single moms.
Yeah.
According to the website, the youngest member is a teenager, but most are between the ages of 25 and 44. They come from different races, faiths, and economic backgrounds. And according to the U.S. Census Bureau in 2022, 80% of one-parent families were headed by the mother.
Are they living in the same house, or is it like little cottages in the same area? How does it work?
So they live under the same roof.
Okay.
They move in together. And so the whole idea is, if I need to go to work, you're home. If I, kind of sharing the rent, the utilities, the child care. Obviously, you would need to find somebody that works along with this. But that's my question. Could you do this? And is this the answer that we've been looking for? When we talk about the high cost of housing, when we talk about pay inequity, right? If you could combine your salary, that's why, some single people feel like, they pay a tax for being single, because married people get a tax deduction. There's the married sharing expenses. That's why I got a roommate when I was younger. It makes way more sense to split the cost with somebody else. And if you could split it with somebody that's going through the same thing that you are, where you have a young child maybe of the same age, could anybody do that? And would you feel comfortable? What concerns would you have? Let me know in the comments, or you can click into the show.
I always thought it would be helpful for a single mother. You hear people that they're on welfare because they don't make enough to pay for childcare and work. It doesn't make sense for them to work, right? It's just, why wouldn't they want to spend that time with their kids instead of have it be a wash where the money they take in is the money that goes straight out to childcare?
Right.
But if you can stagger shifts with someone that you're living with, like another mom who has a child in your house, where, you work the early shift, they work the late shift, and you alleviate those childcare costs, that can be a game changer, especially at a time where we're seeing so many people not being able to afford housing and ending up homeless, right? So what a great deal.
Jim writes in, I know of one person who left a Mommune because she found a man and she married him and moved out, but she loved the support until then.
Yeah.
Lori says, sounds smart to me. I don't have kids, but a great way to share resources and responsibilities. Would need good vetting to find compatible mindsets. And you brought that up earlier. Like, what if you're a screamer versus somebody that does like timeouts? What if you're a helicopter person? Not like yelling and screaming. What if you're a helicopter parent and the person that you're Mommuning with is more like hands off, laissez-faire type of attitude towards parenting? Could you learn from each other though? Right? Like, hey, maybe you should kind of watch a little bit more because they're on their devices all the time and you don't know what they're doing or you don't know where they are, versus, you do need to empower your kid to be on their own, make their own decisions, handle their own problems. So I could actually see people that come from different parenting perspectives giving to each other, but there would have to be a personality component where you would be open to that versus just throwing two completely different parenting ideologies under the same roof. And I could see that, going to hell in a handbasket real quickly. Calvin says it's a good idea. It would be better if employers paid them better too. Underpaid compared to managers. Okay. You would have to have trust for the others, but let's face it, we're an isolating society. And I love that you brought that up, Knit One Peer One, because
Very true. Yeah.
it's true. And I kind of teased this when we were talking about it. When I was flying home from Hawaii, I saw this video, and I wanted to find the name of the company, and I couldn't find it again. It was just on my phone, but it was selling these huge plots of land that came with home designs. They had the water, the sewer, the electricity, and it was designed for multi-family housing. And then when you watch, now of course this was like in places like Texas and Wyoming and places like that, right? Not here where we don't have a lot of land necessarily, depending on where you live, for something like this. But but they were basically saying the historical moving away of multi-family plots of land, not necessarily in the same building or under the same roof, but just even down the way a little bit, right? Like Kim, I would argue you kind of have a little bit of it simply because you live next door to your mother, which
She's
is awesome.
next door though in a whole separate house.
Right.
So
but
like
if if you needed her to watch your kids, you could just kind of go over there.
Oh yeah.
Right.
As a matter of fact, my kids will say they call her Mimi. They say I'm going to Mimi's.
Right.
So they're over there all the time. And I love
that.
that they're growing up with her being close to them. It's awesome.
Exactly. I mean, even my parents, even though they're a mile away, literally 1 mile away, it is so nice to know that, like, my son will say it all the time. He's like, I'm going to go walk Nugget to grandma's house.
Yeah.
Bye. Okay. Bye. And it's awesome. He wasn't able to do that at our old place. Now, would I want to live, and I'm just imagining Texas or Wyoming, let's say 10 acres, right? Would you want to build one house on 1 acre, another house on another acre, not exactly next door? You still have your own space, but your family's there. You're building wealth, right? Because land is finite. Right. So you could be doing that in and of itself. Would it have to be blood relatives, or could you do it with other families that, you love and care for? I mean, the funny thing with tiny homes, for instance, you always see it is, me and my girlfriends, after our husbands die, we're all going to get tiny homes next to each other and just live and do something like that. I think that there might be something in us as human beings that long for that. And moving away from it has hurt us as a society a little bit.
Really trust the people, though, to put yourself in a financial relationship that would be hard to extricate yourself from. It would have to be in the right situation, I think.
I agree with you. That would definitely, you would have to write up some sort of contract that clearly spelled out what would happen. So for instance, if you're on an acre and let's say it wasn't even family or it was family, but they took the other acre and then wanted to move, I wouldn't want them to just sell to someone willy-nilly. I would want to know who the person is. Do they fit in to our whole idea here? Because then you could just go back to doing these kind of single family home neighborhoods, which are really isolating. I mean, think about it. When you drive home, and I know some neighborhoods are better than others. Like in my neighborhood, I wave to my neighbors. I know my direct neighbor and my across the street neighbor, and I've only been here a couple of months, right? Very, very friendly neighborhood. I know the people. My parents' neighborhood, a mile away that I grew up in, I know pretty much everyone on the street. It's awesome. Yeah. But other people live in neighborhoods where you drive in, up goes the garage door, down goes the garage door, and you don't know anybody.
Yeah.
And it sucks. And I think, bring in our other topic of isolating men with no friends, right? No sort of support group, things like that. Maybe this wasn't a good idea. But moving away from people having their own single family homes, that's going to be a hard sell for a lot of people. But it's interesting. So COABODE, COABODE .org is the organization that's just behind the single moms living together under one roof. I think it's a fabulous idea, especially when you factor in women are paid less than men oftentimes. Women, 80% of them are the single parent in the household with children. Team up, women. Team up, do something like that. And at the very least, it gives you some of your life back. It takes the pressure off. I mean, my best friend, whose dog I'm watching right now, I mean, she's doing it all on her own. Yeah, her ex takes the kids, for his set amount of time. But when it's just her. He's married again. She's not, so you need your village. You need people to help support you, and you need someone to take the load off. And that's good for everybody. Okay. When we come back, well, I will have a mishmash of stuff, but I want to talk actually about the dog. that is our roommate for the next several days, and how important it is to know the personality of a dog before you welcome them into your family. Talking about, having people under one roof. I have learned so much about this dog and my dog and how I just made the absolute right choice. Has anybody learned too late that the pet that they had, whether it's a dog, a cat, whatever, just wasn't the right pet for your family? And how did you figure that out? That plus more coming up after Kim's News.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Well, a little more robust newscast this time around. Let's start at the White House, why don't we? Because Nikki had mentioned this earlier, but the Secret Service is closing its investigation now into the discovery of the cocaine at the White House after failing to identify a suspect. The law enforcement agency said it was unable to single out a person of interest from the hundreds of individuals who passed through the West Executive Avenue entrance where that cocaine was discovered. Testing failed to reveal sufficient DNA or fingerprint evidence, and surveillance camera footage was reviewed but produced no leads. Security fail? You be the judge. A brutal heat wave continues to impact much of the southwestern United States. In Death Valley, California, temperatures could potentially reach 130 degrees this weekend. That would match the highest temperature ever reliably recorded on Earth. In El Paso and Miami, the highs have been more than 100 degrees for nearly a month now. Can you imagine a month of that? Whew. No coldness in sight. No relief in sight. There is still no sign of this escaped prisoner's name is Michael Burnham. We've been talking about this on the show for the last couple of days. He has been on the lam for a week. They have been hunting for this person. They call him a dangerous fugitive. He is a homicide suspect. He is said to have survivalist skills, busting out of a Pennsylvania jail through the roof overnight last Thursday, climbing up on exercise equipment, going out through the sun roof. Out he goes, and he's got survivalist skills. They found little campfires in the Allegheny forest, and he's a step ahead of him all the way. An official who watched the surveillance video of the breakout said Burnham looked like a spider as he escaped. A disturbing story. French President Emmanuel Macron received a severed finger in the mail this week. Prosecutors said this letter was sent to the presidential palace in Paris without a note. It was the staff working for President Macron who made that discovery. Some California Democrats doing about face now after getting backlash for voting down a child sex trafficking bill. And Governor Gavin Newsom involved, trying to get everybody in line to support this one. The Republican bill increases penalties for sex trafficking of minors by classifying it as a serious felony in California. But this week, a Democrat majority committee killed the bill, saying it would lead to overcrowded prisons. But after outcry from the public and even from Governor Gavin Newsom, the Democratic Speaker of the Assembly called for an emergency hearing, and it passed with unanimous support.
I love this topic of it. Yeah, I love this topic. Tomorrow, right at the start of the show, you won't want to miss it. Emily Hoven, who's with the San Francisco Chronicle. She's a friend of the show. She's on their editorial board. She wrote about this, and I want to talk to her about this tomorrow, because she's saying that Democrats and their ideology is getting in the way of common sense. And while we don't want overcrowded prisons and all those sorts of things, it does seem obvious that human trafficking should be considered a serious offense. Of children should be considered a serious offense. And so I want to talk to her about this, because Emily's article, and again, we're going to talk about it right at the start of the show tomorrow, is talking about how these moves, like by Democrats, are making the Republicans in California relevant again. And some people are like, oh my God. And it reminds me of the conversation I was having just recently with a conservative in California, talking about it's Newsom, it's the Democrats. It's easy to blame the Democrats because we are a super majority. And I don't mind having Republicans in power in California, having some of them, in powerful positions, as long as they don't subscribe to their federal national counterparts' hateful, discriminatory rhetoric. That is where I draw a line. We could talk about policy all we want. Where you lose me, and I would say many Democrats who don't mind a check and balance politically in the state of California, is that you want to take away fundamental rights from people here in the state of California, where it is, in my opinion, part of our belief system that they should be protected. So we're going to have that kind of debate with Emily, because her editorial has blown up and it went out today regarding this bill that Kim was just talking about, and how it is playing, quote unquote, possibly into the California state Republicans' hands. I just want to talk about, how can Republicans have more of a say on how the state of California is run? And my answer is move away from, those Republicans that are hateful, that speak, terrible rhetoric at the national level, because that does not align with, in my opinion, California values. So that's
on one hand, you see the Republicans in some cases, like conservative, kind of far out people, they're pointing at child sex trafficking for every problem, even in, where it doesn't make any sense, that they're pointing at it in ways that just are riling up a QAnon kind of base, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But this doesn't seem to be that. So maybe California Democrats looked at this bill and thought, oh, here they go again with it, have to bring the child sex trafficking thing up. Here they go again. And so they can say, oh, look what Republicans got passed in California. You see, because, child sex trafficking is a big deal. They have to make sure that it's a federal offense. So these Democrats who are doing these types of things, which is complete nonsense. But
and we also have to remember that the Democrats that voted against it, this was just an assembly committee. Right. I think there were like 3 people on this committee. So to say it's all Democrats is a bit of a stretch, but no Democrat voted for it on this committee, I believe. And so we do need to kind of,
And I think maybe, it's political. They don't want to give anyone credit for,
which is BS. And that's what I hate about politics. That's the problem. It really is.
The rest of us sit around, and every time there's a conviction of someone who is an abuser of children or a trafficker of children, and they get 6 years, 7 years in prison, and you're thinking, how is that even possible?
Mm-hmm.
So making it a federal offense seems to make more sense. And saying that, oh, it'll overcrowd prisons. These are the people you want.
These are the people.
Prison.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Now, Vilma writes in, and Vilma, make sure you join us tomorrow, because this is an excellent point and kind of the point I'm trying to make. She says, Nikki, Republicans in California, I'm assuming you're talking about, would take away women's rights. Trust me on that one. And that's the thing, is that we are so fearful, because at the national level, we see what the GOP does when they have a little bit of power. They take away our rights. And so I don't believe California state Republicans would do right by Californians here. And that's the fear. So can you be a California Republican? That's my thing, because at the same time, not having a check on the California Democratic Party isn't smart either, right? I mean, you can't say the Democrats are always right on every policy decision that they make. That's asinine to think that. So we need a checks and balance. But because the Republican Party has gone off the freaking deep end with all, anti-LGBTQ, anti-abortion, all these sorts of things, I can't in good conscience vote for you. Get it together, align with California values, and then maybe we could talk about policy. So that's just a taste of tomorrow's conversation.
Let's move on to a different story, because I have this story out of Sacramento, and it's kind of eye-opening when you talk about the homeless. Sacramento County sheriffs, they say they made efforts to reach out to the homeless population in the Sacramento area. Mm-hmm. Sheriff Jim Cooper says his deputies traveled throughout the county for 5 days in May. They reached out to homeless people to offer services. He says out of nearly 200 people that they spoke with, only one homeless person accepted their offer for services and help. 1 out of 200. Wow. Sheriff Cooper says they are aware there are issues that stop homeless people from accepting help, like sexual assaults, mental illness, and drug addiction. But come on, I mean, when you offer help, 1 out of 200, they'd say they'd rather, stay on the street than they would to accept your offer of assistance.
And that's why when we talk about this and people always mention taking away people's civil rights, that's what we're talking about there. Okay, fine, but you can't stay here. So you either accept the help or you're forcefully put into some sort of housing. I mean, are we going to make it illegal to live on the streets? That's where I think this is heading, where you do not own this piece of land, and so you are not allowed to sleep here.
And that's it. Because you can see that even when help is offered,
They're
it's
not
not
taking
given.
it. Yeah.
So I guess
They
what do
say
you
I
have
think
to-
I think the statistic is
Yeah.
something like 6 to 8 times you have to make contact
Yeah.
with someone before they even consider
It's
getting
crazy.
services. It's crazy, and that's hard.
And I mean, I guess you and I are in such different, have such a different mindset about this, because if we were struggling, if we had to sleep on the street, if our kids were put at risk, the first thing we do when someone puts out a hand for help is
Oh, yeah.
would say, absolutely, get me out of here, please.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
SAG-AFTRA. You mentioned it
Mhm.
before. Film and TV production grinding to a halt in Hollywood. The union representing 160,000 actors going on strike, joining the Hollywood writers who've been on strike for nearly 2.5 months. That means that new TV series, movies, soon to be drying up in the coming months.
Wow.
There is a new record holder. Look at these guys. Look at those 4. Yes, hands up in victory. It is the world's toughest row. A 4-man team called Kiwi Fondue made it from the Monterey Bay to Hawaii in 29 days.
Wow.
That is half the time that the race typically takes, making them the fastest to ever row across the Pacific Ocean. 12 teams remain at sea, working their way toward the finish line. Fans can follow them online, but the Kiwi Fondue, look at them right in front of Diamond Head and Honolulu, Waikiki. There they are, rowing in.
So they're
Yeah.
from New Zealand?
I don't know exactly where they're from, to be
The
honest.
Kiwi
I would-
fondue. I was just thinking they're New Zealanders, right?
You would think so, but sometimes the boat's called a kiwi.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
I don't know the answer, but I know that they're first and they started in Monterey. So, hey, go.
That is awesome. I mean, look at that tan. Look at the muscles.
I know.
Good
Hello,
going,
boys. Welcome
Good
to Hawaii.
going.
Aloha. And lastly, this story out of Lake Tahoe. Did you hear
Okay.
this?
No.
A Margaritaville resort is headed to South Lake Tahoe.
Oh, fun.
Supposed to open up this winter. The Margaritaville Resort, Lake Tahoe, will be the company's first ski resort location and Lake Tahoe's only all-suite hotel. The resort will have a variety of dinner options, including the JWB, a Jimmy Buffett Prime Steak and Seafood. It's replacing the current Lake Tahoe Resort Hotel right along the California state line, Highway 50 and I think Tahoe Boulevard. It used to be aligned with another hotel chain, and
Okay.
they left, and so now Buffett moves in. But if this is how it's decorated,
Kim
right.
doesn't like it. Get a new decorator.
yeah, it needs to be a little fancier for Lake Tahoe, I think. I'm a little more mountainy.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't
but
know.
it is. You said it's Margaritaville, right?
It's
So-
Margaritaville,
so
yeah.
it's gonna have that kind of beachy type of atmosphere. I feel like.
Yeah, it is.
It's not aligned with her decor love. Okay.
I just, I want to see a little bit more. I don't know. It's a little too modern. It's not very homey.
Okay.
I don't know. It's not that mountain resort when you want to walk in
That
and
is
settle in
very
front of the
true.
fire, right?
That is very
Yeah.
true.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, click the thumbs up, guys. Before we end the show, we have about 15 minutes left, and Kim mentioned the heat. Be careful; it's going to be really, really hot. Today, it's like kind of ramping up. Tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, those are really going to be the hot days. I was telling my husband, because he works outside, better be drinking. He's like, I'm hydrating before I dehydrate. So he's been drinking so much water, which you have to do. Did you see this story, though, out of Florida? A 34-year-old woman was arrested after her dog's body reached over 100 degrees on Tuesday. So Lee County deputies responded to the home in regards to a dog being left outside. And we were just talking about how freaking hot it was in Florida. The 5-year-old, it was a pit bull mix, was dead. It had no food, no water, no shelter. So it couldn't hide in like the shade from the heat. Apparently the dog named Los had reached 100 had reached 104 degrees in surface temperature. They could not get an internal reading because their temperature gauge didn't go that high.
Oh,
That's how hot
sad is
this
that?
poor. So bring your dogs, cats, whatever. It's hot outside. It is absolutely hot outside. Now, speaking of dogs, I introduced you to Josie, who is the beautiful, and I am telling you, this freaking dog is gorgeous. Not outside, sitting on my couch right now. Gorgeous chocolate lab. My parents had a lab. They had a golden lab years ago. They got it right before I left for college, so I kind of missed the whole puppy years. When I came back, it was like a full grown lab or whatever. My parents' dog's name was Sunny. Very, very cute. And now Josie, I think, is almost 2, if not just now. She's almost 2 years old, so still a puppy in like lab kind of years. I can just tell you, I love this dog. Very, very cute, smarter than you can ever believe. But we, as our household, definitely made the right choice in getting Nugget, our golden doodle, versus a lab. Because I am now my dog gets the we call them the zoomies at night, right? Like we're throwing things and they're zooming around, like. But definitely like a cuddle dog. All I wanted when I said I wanted a dog is I want a dog that's going to sit next to me on the couch and snuggle me while we watch television. And like, we'll go out to play. I didn't need a dog to go hunting or fishing or doing any of these things. I don't do these things, right? So I wasn't looking for a dog. Josie, perfect dog to go duck hunting or whatever you're going to do. Like that, this dog has so much energy from the moment I open my eyes. For instance, if I leave this spot, Josie is at my side. She's a very good girl though. She's not around me right now. She's a very good girl. Like she knows I'm on air. I think Nugget like had a conversation with her. He's like, she's on air. It's when she says bye-bye, then you can walk up to her, because right when I say bye to you guys, Kim knows Nugget is right at my side. He knows when this show ends. Yeah. But she is up my butt and twice on Sunday. I swear to God. I was kind of Porky Pigging it around the house this morning because I just had a t-shirt on with my a wet dog's nose right up my butt. I'm not even kidding. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. So I'm just saying, has anybody ever like had a dog and when like I should have done a little more research?
I have to give Josie a break because that's puppydom, right? So
I guess, but she's also big and that tail is like a weapon. Oh my God, it's like this long, and you get that in your face or your leg, it hurts.
Yeah, my dog has a very powerful tail as well. It's crazy.
Nugget does, and he has a nice fluffy tail, and maybe I'm biased because it's like it's kids, right? It's like your kid versus the kid that you're babysitting. And although I'm giving Josie love, I have to give my first love to my dog.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be, obviously, I'm loving this dog. I went out and got new snacks. I got Josie her own Kong, which is like this plastic thing that you could put treats inside of it. And it's supposed to, and so I got it because I wanted her to busy herself while I'm doing the show because I can't pay attention to her. But she keeps bringing it to me and it's so slobbery. Like Nugget is not a in your face dog. Labs are with the tongue out and the drool and the drooly toy they bring you. I don't like it. I don't like it at
dogs,
all.
Did you? I was just reading a story because I was looking up that story you were talking about regarding
the Florida woman
and this dog. But there's a side note story attached to it that dogs tend to bite more when it's hot outside. That dogs are more aggressive in high heat. High temperature raises the risk of aggression in dogs. And I guess that is something that had been known, but I'm just learning it now.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's something that we should know that, they're, I guess, stressed out. Their bodies are stressed out as well. They don't have as much patience as they normally do too.
Exactly. Harry says, leave that woman outside without food, water, or shelter. I remember there was this, I used to love watching CSI. And there was this episode where a kid was left alone in the car and they were trying to prove whether or not the dad did it on purpose. That was the point of the show. But I'll never forget this scene at the end of the episode where one of the cops that was investigating it got in the car and just shut the door and didn't turn it on and just sat there and looked at like the temperature gauge inside the car and saw it going up. And they were only in there for 10 seconds. And they're just thinking about how a child or a dog or an animal feels very, very quickly in this heat. Like, I don't understand I understand mistakes can be made, but this woman leaving her dog outside all day while you're inside, like my friend was like, if you walk the dog, I'm like, unless it's early morning and the evening, which we're probably not going to do. We're just cuddling and playing in the house, dude, because it's hot. I'm not going to let them walk on the hot ass cement in the middle of the day. I wonder if Amy is Amy here. Amy's always in the comments because Amy's our dog walker viewer. I wonder what she does. I'll have to reach out to her. She had emailed me. I think I have her email still. What do dog walkers do when it's really, really hot outside? I mean, because you obviously have the time that you normally walk, but if it's this hot outside, how do you even deal with that?
You have to, make sure reach down and touch the pavement and whatnot.
It's too hot. It's too hot.
Looking at this study, though, out of Psychology Today, and it looks at the temperature outside and then versus the number of dog bites that were treated, that what people went to the hospital for dog bites. And it shows that dog bites are more prevalent the warmer it is outside. So it's the similarity between the behavior of dogs and humans demonstrated. As humans get edgy and are easily annoyed when the temperature climbs, so do dogs, because there have been studies showing there's more violence when the temperature is really hot outside for people as well. It's interesting. They say humans can try to reduce the annoyance level by trying to find a cooler place or having something like a cold beer, but animals can't do that. So.
And then, and we were talking yesterday, like heat stroke, if you stop sweating, if you see your dog panting and there's no saliva, because that's the way they cool themselves, right? Is panting, then your dog might be in trouble. SF Tesla says certain breeds of bees sting more or get angry easier in the heat. Everyone's all pissed off when it's too hot, right?
Well, what they're saying to the best thing to do with dogs is toss them a few ice cubes to chew on and leave them alone.
Oh, I pay the ice tax every day to my dog. Doesn't matter.
And also keep them away from strangers until evening when things naturally cool down. But ice cubes are a good thing. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the best test, Kim, if you're a human, go into your backyard and go on the pavement with no shoes on and see how long you stand. And that's as long as you want your dog to stand there. Now, I know that their paws are different, but it's still freaking hot, right? It's still hot. They said SF Tesla says last summer, these wild jackrabbits were so hot, they had to lick the grass blades for moisture. Hot and hot.
I have a rabbit story. Do we have time for it?
Well, yes, we do. Are you going to depress everyone at the end of the show? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I would. It's a Debbie Downer. I'm bringing you all down. Here it goes. This is a completely unintentional.
Okay. Was it you?
No, my husband's dad, and my husband has two sisters that are from a second marriage, so half sisters, right? And so they got a rabbit. My father-in-law, and the two daughters got this rabbit, and he went outside in the backyard. They live in Southern California, and he built this rabbit hutch out of corrugated metal in the backyard to keep it a shady spot for the rabbit. While the sun was shining directly on this,
he made an oven.
Metal, he made a rabbit oven.
Oh,
and that rabbit roasted alive in the backyard.
Oh my God, how awful.
Really awful, devastating for the kids, obviously for the rabbit and whatever. But it was totally unintentional. So he's trying to build out a little rabbit area to keep it shady. And he ends up building this,
I mean, I know it was unintentional, but you would think like metal gets really, really hot. Yeah, you need to insulate it because there's corrugated steel is often used for roofs in a lot of countries, right? But you need to insulate it because obviously it's going to absorb all that heat. Aw. Well, that is a sad story. Let's end it on a higher note, though. Okay. Kim, our friend Kim is taking care of a husky right now.
Oh, I love a husky.
Yeah. What kind so do you think that the personality of your dog, Kim, matches your family's personality?
I do.
Okay. Do you think that it's because of the personality of the breed or because of the personality of your family?
Both.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Because somebody was saying earlier, it's because we got Nugget as a puppy, he learned from us, but it's so funny because Josie comes from my best friend's house and she is, I crack up every time we make plans to do anything because she's like, okay, we're going to do this and this. And then I packed this, and she never stops. And I'm like, oh God, Lord, help me. I'm just going to lay here on my back and just let you do all the planning. And Josie seems to be very, let's go. And me and Nugget are sitting on the couch being like, can you just chill a little bit, dog? Because we really wanted to watch Next Level Chef for another hour or so and just want to chill. So I love my little Nugget. I do love the fact that he's gotten better. So we got Josie, not yesterday, the night before last. Okay. And so we don't give her back until Sunday.
Okay.
So the socialization has been huge for Nugget, but I'm going to be honest. I feel like he's a little mad at me. Like he like keeps looking at me with this face that says, she's still here. Like she eats my toys. She's gnawing on my bones, even though she has her own toys. You know how that is. So I'm like, yes, my nuggy buggy boy. I'm sorry. please forgive me. But yeah, I think the socialization is going to be awesome for him. All right. Thanks, guys. Again, join us right at the start of the show because, obviously, if you're watching in replay, it's there anytime. But if you want to weigh in, we will have Emily Hoven, who is on the editorial team at the San Francisco Chronicle, talking about that SB 14, which was that bill that was shot down, but I guess now it's passing, that has to do with human trafficking being a serious offense if you human traffic children. And at first it went down. And Emily wrote about, this is giving Republicans in the state of California, some ammunition because they're giving them a win, like obviously. And what is the problem? Is it ideology? Is it not wanting to give Republicans a win? And how do we balance the politics in California? Or should they not be balanced at all? Because of how Republicans at both the state and national level are right now with their rhetoric and conspiracy theories and taking away rights and what have you. So that's going to happen right at the start of the show tomorrow. So join us for that conversation. Click the thumbs up button before the show ends. Please do it. If you're watching in replay, the super chat is also live. You can throw us a super thanks, a super comment, a super sticker. And then please, you guys consider, we're 100% crowdfunded. So please consider being a monthly Patreon subscriber to our show. It is the number one way we get money for the show. So go to theNikkiMedoroShow.com. Our Patreon link is there. The money goes to me and to Kim, and we just really appreciate it. Plus all the links to our PayPal, our merch shop, and to share past shows with your friends is right on that website as well. So we'll talk tomorrow. It's Friday. Bye-bye.
Nikki, you're all so awesome, Miss Brown, like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.